Hi. Today we will be taking a brief look at the Muslim rape of Europe. The European Parliament is an important forum for political debate and decision-making at the EU level. The members of the European Parliament are directly elected by voters in all member states to represent people's interests with regard to EU lawmaking and to make sure other EU institutions are working democratically. Georg Mayer, born the 12th of October 1973, is an Austrian politician and member of the European Parliament from Austria, in short MEP. He is a member of the Freedom Party of Austria, part of the Patriots for Europe. In 2015, Georg Mayer submitted a document called Wave of Muslim Rape Cases Across Europe to the Commission. He wrote, and I quote, "Europe is currently being overwhelmed by a wave of rape committed by Muslim migrants. Particularly in Scandinavian countries, the number of rapes of white women and girls is rising. These women are considered by Muslim migrants as third-class citizens. In the English town of Rotherham alone, 1,400 white girls were abused, raped and murdered by Muslim gangs over a period of years. Many of these incidents are gang rapes. Many local city councils in England, Sweden, Norway and Denmark know very well how things stand, but conceal the real situation for fear of being accused of racism. If, despite all this, rape charges are still brought, it is usually the perpetrators and not the victims who are treated leniently, because the perpetrators claim that the women had consented to sexual intercourse. If these abuses are raised by local politicians, they are sometimes convicted of slandering ethnic groups. Point 1. Why do we turn a blind eye to such atrocities? Fear of possible allegations of racism is no justification for ignoring acts of this kind. In Austria, too, there are increasing numbers of rapes and attempted rapes by migrants. Point 2. Does it make any sense to continue talking about isolated cases here? Point 3. Why does the Commission not take preventive measures?" End quote. Georg Mayer made his statement in 2015. We are currently in 2025, and we can see a huge cover-up of facts, statements, and various documents. Corruption in the police force and government have also been ignored. Instead of focusing on the issue, the BBC, Channel 4, Guardian Media and many other media outlets are busy deflecting the actual issue. Let's take a look at the independent inquiry into child sexual exploitation in Rotherham, 1997 to 2013. Information is available on the Rotherham Council website. On page 91, point number 11, issues on ethnicity. The study shows abuse within the Pakistani community. Muslims abusing Muslims. I quote, "Young people were thought to be at risk of physical or sexual abuse for a variety of reasons. Some had been separated from their own families. There were also issues of poverty, forced marriage and child abduction. In the early months of 2005-12, cases of forced marriage had been dealt with in Rotherham, the highest in the South Yorkshire police area. Of particular concern was the young age of many of the girls involved." End quote. The document attempts to whitewash facts, however it does state grooming gang perpetrators, and I quote, "In Rotherham, the majority of known perpetrators were of Pakistani heritage, including the 5 men convicted in 2010. The file reading carried out by the inquiry also confirmed that the ethnic origin of many perpetrators was Asian. In one major case in the mid-2000s, the convicted perpetrator was Afghan. Latterly, some child victims of CSE and some perpetrators had originated from the Roma Slovak community." End quote. The document also stated, and I quote, "In the broader organizational context, however, there was a widespread perception that messages conveyed by some senior people in the council and also the police were to downplay the ethnic dimensions of CSE. Unsurprisingly, frontline staff appeared to be confused as to what they were supposed to say and do, and what would be interpreted as racist. There was too much reliance by agencies on traditional community leaders such as elected members and imams as being the primary conduit of communication with the Pakistani heritage community." End quote. Let's quickly look at some British prison statistics. You may want to watch my previous video on that here. Moving on. A document issued by Prison Reform Trust Org UK, titled The Bromley Briefings Prison Fact File, Winter 2022 edition, on page 30. It states, and I quote, "There are now 2.5 times more Muslims in prison than there were in 2002. In 2002, there were 5,502 Muslims in prison. By 2021, this had risen to 13,724.147. They now account for 18% of the prison population, but just 5% of the general population." End quote. A Muslim is a person who identifies themselves with Islam. Islam is the perfect religion. Do you understand the liberal dilemma? Muslims are raping and abusing Muslims. Muslims are raping Hindus and Sikhs. Muslims are raping white girls. Muslims are literally raping everything.